My name is Samir, and today's talk is about India after Gandhi. So, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell you in short what happened from independence till now, because that's a part of history which is relegated to politics, political science, and is not taught in our schools. At least when I was in school, it wasn't taught. And from what she says, it's especially the most recent part of history tends to be the most important, and especially considering that we need to play a part in civic society. We need to know what has happened, what has worked, what has not worked, and what we need to do further. So, India After Gandhi is actually the name of a book by Ramachandra Goa. It's a very nice book if you guys are interested in history. So the surprising thing about it is that it's not dreary, it's not long, it's not boring. But he tells it in the form of a story, and that's the most interesting part about it. That's why I named it after him. So let's go ahead. So what happened right after independence? Wait, let me before I go that. So go there. Let me just take a quick show of hands to say, what do you know from what happened from there till now? Just to see where I can fill the gaps. So can anybody tell me any one or two points that important points that happened between then and now? What about you? Do you know anything that happened from then and now? What happened?
After the independence, the Muslims they wanted partition of India. They wanted their own country. They actually didn't want a separate country, but they just wanted a state for all the Muslims.
Okay, great. So that's mostly correct. What about you? What do you know? No, not just after partition, but there's like 60 years from there till now. What do you know about that?
They chose to rule by themselves. They did not go back to monarchy, but kings or other.
That's a good point. Democracy is what we went for. What about you?
Like between independence and now, or even before?
No, from independence till now. So the 60 years or 65 years in between. Take any incident that happened and anything that you think is important.
The partition she already told.
Okay.
Like they did not want to follow the ways of the British. They felt that whatever they did, the rules and regulations that they were unfair, so they wanted to make their own set of rules.
That's partly true. So which kind of rules are you speaking that we changed?
Like the judgmental system when the two people are they're accused of something wrong. Normally when they went to the court, the British always used to choose that if the person had the wealth or they had power, they were always correct compared to the person who was with the less class.
Are you sure about that? I really didn't know that. I mean, I thought. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think so.
They
had a fair
judiciary. Yeah. So.
But then when the British were ruling.
Yeah, even when the British were ruling, so
They didn't like the Rowlatt Act by the British, which they arrest a person without a trial.
Yeah, that used to be there. Great. So, why don't you tell us something?
It is not just about this the partition and all. We can also tell that there was a lot of development in many different cases. Though we don't know much about it, but
Okay, great. So, why don't you, sir, tell us? You must be knowing a lot. At least the past 20, 30 years, you'd be knowing a lot. Tell us.
20, 30 years.
I mean, last 20, 30 years.
Last 20, 30
yeah.
years. So that time, after the independence, there was something unity because all the states, okay, all the different religions, they were parts of the country. They were united in fighting against British.
A common enemy.
Yeah. So that time, the unity was there.
Yeah.
But now slowly, what we are seeing is it's a disintegration time. It's a more regionalism, and the people are more concerned about local issues, cash, and all these things. That is the reason what I can see is the major difference is initially there was a national parties.
I think concern about local issues is fair and it should be there.
But that is
not in
if you don't
but
treat
not
properly,
but not in the sense of us versus them. Yeah, agreed.
if you don't, that may become eventually maybe disintegration of the country also. That is the major risk what I can see that is.
Okay.
Because initially there is a common yeah, everyone was united. Okay, they fought against British. Okay, that type of unity I don't see at this time.
And you say that you
Yeah.
think that that unity was there in the beginning and now it's not there?
It's not there means maybe.
I mean,
may
it's
eventually-
eroding, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's what eroding.
Okay.
Because initially the generation know that Gandhi,
Yeah.
Nehru,
Yeah.
okay,
They were
the importance
uniting.
of
They
this,
were
but-
uniting people.
Yeah.
People rallied around them.
People
Yeah,
rallied
that's right.
around
That's
that
right.
type of unity. They are the connecting
What
factor.
what else have been your observation in the past 10, 15 years maybe, or 20 years?
That is a major observation, but other
Sure.
than that, okay, there is a development that is happening. Okay, we can see okay, economically we've grown, but at the same time there is a huge difference from rich and poor. Okay,
The
that is
rich
also we
poor
have to
divide
take
is
care.
there.
Okay, otherwise if the difference is more, then again unrest and all that.
Okay, great. How about you, sir?
I think still we consider ourselves as a developing economy. Although in many other areas we've developed, but still India is considered developing or emerging economy in the recent times. I think from continuing to focus on one country, there is many states. So I think there is a lot of division in terms of how will you take care of your state versus a national interest. And I think the entire political arena has also changed distinctly in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah, you used to have party
One
government and
party,
now you
now
have coalitions everywhere.
multiple.
Right. So that's an interesting point. I think India, in a sense, is very similar to Europe. India, the country, is similar to Europe, the continent, in the sense that Europe is a continent that is made up of multiple countries, a large number of which have their own languages and cultures and customs. India also is similar to that. It has its own languages, customs, cultures, festivals throughout the country. And interesting to see that Europe has only recently, about 10 years ago, started to consolidate itself into one economy, one currency. But India did that 50 years ago. So when India, so before the British got here, right, there wasn't actually any concept of India. The concept of India came into being only after the British came in. There was a concept of Bharat, but that was mostly limited to whatever major ruler had in his grasp at that point of time. So, like for example, the Mughal Empire covered most of the southern India wasn't a part of that. And even in the times of most of the major kings at that time, say Harsh, not that time, many times, right? So that also covered the north of the country and the center of the country, not the south. So they were like two distinct regions, and the concept of one nation and one country emerged from having a common enemy, as you said. So let's dive into what happened after partition, right after we got independence. So partition is the first thing that happened. A large number of people were migrating. So large number of Muslims were going from India to Pakistan, and a lot of Hindus are coming from Pakistan to India. And at that time, Pakistan was two regions: the current Pakistan that you know of now, and Bangladesh. Bangladesh used to be a part of Pakistan. So Jinnah finally had two regions geographically separated in one country, so which was very odd at that time. But he got that, and that the people who lived through that time speak of the horrors of that time, because people were kicked out of their houses just because they are of a different religion, and people were also massacred. They were killed. And there were some brave people who gave refuge to other people in their basement. But in general, it was a very difficult time for the country, both countries actually. We were a divided country. Punjabis and Madrasis did not get along well. There was so much difference in culture, language, religion, food habits, dress habits, that most people did not expect India to survive as a united country. Everybody expected it to disintegrate within a few years, and that's actually what has happened in history for other countries, countries which are not similar culturally, they tend to break up. Like for example, Yugoslavia broke up into a few countries. USSR broke up into countries. Even for a long time, England and Ireland, Scotland, they were two separate countries for a long time just because they were culturally different. So it's very hard to get a different people with different cultures to live together in harmony and be part of one nation. So at that time we were called divided. Now we call that as we are a diverse nation, we call it diversity. So the negative became a positive thing because we've been able to keep ourselves together for a pretty long period of time. The occupation at that time was predominantly agricultural. Most people were farmers. More than, I think, 80% of our GDP was then based on farming. That is not the case now. Farming is much less. I think it's around 40% of our GDP is now farming. Large, most of it, most of the other part is service and industries. This is how the map looks. So you'll be surprised to know that the map of India as it is now was not the way it was before. So the interesting part here is that few regions were named after their cities, not the states. Like Hyderabad here, this region was Hyderabad. It's a big region. Mysore, which is a city now, used to be a state. Cochin, Travancore was a region. And okay, Rajputana is kind of still we have Rajput, but Patiala, that area. So, and what you see here is the light colored areas were the areas that the British used to um, rule directly, and the other ones were Indian princely states who accepted British rule in the sense that okay, whatever you say, I'll do, but then I also have some power to do my own thing in my own area. So one big challenge that we had then was to unite all of these areas into one country. So we had to go, and some of the princely states, as it was then known, we talked them into it. Some of them we invaded, like Goa was invaded to capture, which you might not know. We tried a lot of peaceful methods, but they didn't work with Goa. So we annexed. But the thing is that we did not annex and then torment people. Usually, when countries annex another region, they tend to treat those people badly, and they are treated like the way Britishers treated India, right? So, but that wasn't done. So that's why that's why you didn't see a lot of civil unrest in Goa, because the citizens there weren't denied Indian citizenship in the true sense. So I've divided up the period from then till now into the periods in which our prime ministers were ruling, were governing. Ruling is the wrong word. They don't rule us; they govern us. Can somebody tell me why I chose administrators instead of 50s, then 60s, then instead of decades? Any guesses?
Because they implemented their own change during each period of time.
Yeah. So that's correct. So what happens is that instead of decades, right? Changes don't happen because of time. Changes happen because of people. People make changes. That's why change happens. And the people at the top, especially during the time when our country was a fragile country, the decisions they made, the changes that they brought in, had a very strong impact on everybody that lived at that point of time. So that's why I'm taking the prime ministers of that period, and we'll go through a little bit of what they did in their time. So Jawaharlal Nehru was the one of the freedom fighters of our country, and he assumed the prime ministership from 52 to 64, and his measures were mostly socialist. So our history was that the Britishers came as traders and then they took over power. So we had a very skeptical, or a very, we were afraid of business and businessmen. And then at that point of time, Russia was a very strong power at that point of time, and it was a socialist country. And we had a lot of poor people, and we thought that socialism is the right way to get our people out of poverty and into the middle class or the upper class. So the socialist plannings were there, were central planning. It's not that the market decides what needs to be created, what needs to be consumed. It's centrally planned by the government, and the government says what needs to be created, what needs to be exported. Farmers didn't have any taxes. I think that's the case even now. Minimum wage and benefits for blue collars. Blue collars are the working people, the manual laborers. Nationalization of steel, aviation, shipping, electricity, and mining. So all the big industries, major industries, were nationalized. By nationalization, you mean the government took ownership of it, and it drove what would be done. It took the decisions of how much to create and what to do. That, I believe, was not a good thing, which we'll come to later. We'll see how that was not a good thing. Public works. This was a good thing. So creation of infrastructure in the form of dams, canals, roads, thermal and hydroelectric power plants, schools and colleges. We invested a lot in infrastructure and education. The IITs were set up then. A few years later, the IIMs were also set up. All of our major dams, Bhakra Nangal, Hirakud, they were all done shortly after independence. Consolidation. Vallabhbhai Patel was responsible for going to the princely states and getting them under one country, India. Without him, we wouldn't have what we have now. States reorganization. As you know, right now the country looks very different from when it was then. And this was the period of, although that reorganization kept happening, and even a current reorganization is still going on. Can anybody guess what's the next reorganization? Telangana. So that's not a done thing. So it's been going on, but that started then. Equality. So equality is something that right now we take for granted. In the eyes of the law, a guy, a girl, a Muslim, a Hindu, Christian, lower caste, upper caste, untouchable, no matter what, they are equal in the eyes of the law. But at that point of time, it wasn't so easy, because the question was asked, should we give everybody the right to vote? What about the people who are illiterate, who don't know how to read, or how can you trust them to decide who should be ruling? There was an intense debate about that. And then it was decided that since a majority of people were illiterate, and who they chose to govern them decided their fate, it was right and it was just, it was fair to allow them to vote. So adult suffrage is what we call it. So the power of everybody who's above 18, earlier it was 21, it was reduced to 18. Anybody who is above that age, irrespective of anything else, as long as that person is an Indian citizen, a person is allowed to vote. So you need to understand that before that, and even to a certain extent now, we have a hierarchy mindset. There is somebody at the top. We have a landlord or a zamindar who is our boss. We have a panchayat who controls what we do, and we are like Babuji sir, namaste, and all that. And so, and those who were in power had that tendency of amassing power to themselves and not giving it to the downtrodden, is what I'd call them. So equality was not there at that time, but the constitution as it was framed guaranteed legal equality. By legal equality, I'm saying that in the eyes of the law they're the same. But what kind of equality does legal equality not guarantee? Can anybody tell me? Equality is of different kinds. It's not just in the eyes of the law. You want equality in other places, right? What other places?
Admissions.
Admissions. So that's kind of like educational equality. So that was not guaranteed. Social equality was not guaranteed. If somebody, I mean, the law cannot force social actions. Like, for example, if I am a Dalit and you treat me bad, right? If there is no record of that, I cannot go and prove it, and that's strictly defined or punished. Economic equality. Some people have more money, some people have less money. This did not guarantee that everybody will have equal money. So there were a few other equalities that we did not get to, but the most important one in front of law is what we did achieve. License Raj. So this was, I think, one of the gravest mistakes we did then. So the license Raj meant that to do anything related to business, you needed a license. If you want to import iron ore, you need a license. If you want to export steel, you need a license. If your car breaks down, you need a part imported from somewhere, you need a license from the government. That's a stupid thing, right? Because so the license Raj came from the socialistic policies of centralized planning. The government decides everything that needs to be done. The problem with that, can anybody tell me what's the problem with having the government decide what needs to be bought, what needs to be produced, what needs to be sold? Any guesses? So the core point is that collective intelligence is better than individual intelligence. Even if one person is very smart, he does not have enough signals, enough knowledge to know what is needed. So if you're like one person, right? The government is, although many people, but still, how many things can you do at a time? You can only do a few things at a time. What happens to the rest of the things? You're not able to give attention to them, right? And also the market, right? The market as a concept is such a beautiful concept that, let's say you decide to make shirts, for example, and you make so many shirts that nobody buys. So what do? You reduce the price or you stop making the shirts. So the market gives you signal. And what's the signal? That they don't buy. And what do? You stop making shirts or you reduce the price. That means, or stop selling the shirt. That means the capital or the effort that's done, you will use that in some other place. Let's say pants. People want more pants. You would start doing that, right? But if a government decides, the government doesn't have these market inputs. So it won't be very good at two things: allocating resources and innovation. It won't do innovation. It won't go to the people and say, what are your needs? I'm going to do that. In our service industry in IT, right, our major focus is to satisfy the customer. Whatever he wants, we'll give it to him. That ensures that what is needed is actually being delivered. But when you have a centralized planning, you don't get that. The feedback by the time it goes there is lost. So
those times, probably you may require that because that is just we got the independence. We don't have that as India, the type of maturity of professionalism. Okay,
I would not agree. So
definitely, okay, there is a because we have taken the path socialistic at the same time. Okay, since the type of maturity is not there,
why?
central place
What makes you say that we don't have that maturity? Before the British came, I'll tell you. Before the British came, around 100 years before that, we had almost 30% of the world GDP was in India. India had the largest economy. We created the most amount of goods, and you're telling me that we didn't have the maturity to.
What I see is a lot of anarchy. Just we got that independence at the time,
Right.
so there is a more focus. Okay, where we have to streamline all the process. Okay, so what I see is the first 10 years that is necessary, but definitely I see, okay, during the Indira Gandhi's tenure or whatever, that time we should have been more liberalized, okay. That is where I see we miss that, whatever I can see, like a 20 years we are behind because of that, okay, the Indira Gandhi's time, not those type of decisions have been taken there.
But why do you think that, what, I will agree that for certain things like setting up steel plants and creating infrastructure and that, the government should have played a role. But why should the government restrict activities which do not require a lot of capital? Like, for example, setting up a shop or creating a small industry or small factory. Why should the government decide what you should import, what you should export, how many pieces you should make? Like, for example, in my dad's time, right, he had to wait for 2 years to buy a scooter.
It's more than that also.
Before his time, it was like 5 years, 10 years. I think you, sir, would remember, right? That is absurd. That is absurd.
Then I'll give you.
Time, that is where.
Sorry to interrupt you. One classic example.
Yeah.
At one time, you had to have a license to purchase a radio.
A radio.
Yes. I have lived through that era.
And what did you have to do to get? Is it easy to get a license?
Radio license is required.
Yes,
that time.
license was required.
Was it just you apply, you get it, or?
Not very difficult. But
Okay.
you know, it's a thing. Now we.
I think that was there for TVs also, right? You had to pay some tax for Doordarshan or something.
There was no license.
No?
But
Okay.
for owning, you
Yeah.
had to have a license.
Should have a license.
And another thing I would like to supplement what you said about India and China were two superpowers before the British era.
Yeah.
Somewhere about 200 years back.
Uh-huh.
This is now accepted by Western historians also.
Yeah.
It's a fact not many Indians know.
Hmm.
The 200 years back, the two major superpowers in the world were India and China.
Hmm.
And now we are back to the same situation.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
when you
that the British have done
can
immense
can
good.
anybody tell me why that's the case? Why did we go back to a situation in which India and China are emerging and other countries are not, more than other countries? Can anybody give me an idea and a guess? What is special about India and China that's not there in other countries? Number of people is a good point. So the more people you have, the more things you can produce, the more services that you can give. Right. The second thing is that wages. Since a lot of people are poor, and the power of the rupee to buy stuff in India is larger than in other countries, so you can do the same quality of work with lesser price. So that's why the whole outsourcing thing happened. That's why manufacturing went to China, because it was cheaper to build things there. That's a very interesting point that you.
Just in case somebody is interested,
Hmm.
go to the net and see. Dharampal is one historian
Hmm.
who's done a lot of work on this area.
Hmm.
He contribute. What was the status of India
Hmm.
before the British came?
Hmm.
In fact, not only industrialization, even in the field of education,
Hmm.
India's achievements were remarkable.
We
before
had
the British came.
we had Nalanda, we had Takshila.
No, forget Nalanda. Just 200 years back, a number of universities and colleges in India were more than the British era. This is a thing we find difficult to accept. But please see, go to the net and see the contribution of Dharampal. Dharampal has done a lot of research on this area.
I'll look that up. So I would agree to your point that we needed centralized investment in large scale stuff.
The initial years.
Was rising, so we were enamored by it, right? If it would have failed then before, if the USSR would have failed, if China had failed and then later switched to the market, maybe we would not have done that. But that was the fad at that time, if you would call it. So that's.
No, apart from that, just one point. I will supplement what he said. I think what you are trying to convey, was the fact that private sector was not in a position to invest, say in railways, say in atomic energy,
Fine.
in steel plants.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So at that point, that strategy was needed.
Okay. I agree to saying that the government should have invested in them. Fine.
Yes.
But preventing private players from doing what they need to do, fulfilling market demand, fulfilling people's demand, stopping that, right?
Yes.
That was a bad idea.
Okay, because to give one example, government was manufacturing modern bread. Modern bread at one time.
Bread, okay.
Owned by the government of India.
Oh, was it?
So
I've
what is-
eaten
yes.
modern bread. Okay.
It was disinvestment was done during Janta government's
rule.
BJP government's
Huh.
rule.
Huh.
It was handed over to Hindustan Lever or some company.
Okay.
So as you say, the government has no business manufacturing
Bread, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Initial.
Initial, like, they started with.
Yeah, sure. Let's move on. Then came Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi was his daughter, and she rose to power in 66 to 67 and 80 to 84. So the important points when she was ruling was the Bangladeshi War of Independence. So what happened was that culturally Bangladesh, or East Pakistan as it was known then, was different from West Pakistan, because it was mostly Bengalis, Muslim Bengalis, and that was Muslim Punjabis and Muslim, I don't know what they're called. They had two cultures, and the center of power was there in West Pakistan. So what East Pakistan did was, it was being treated as second class citizen. So uh, most of the money was kept there, most of the investments were done there. These people were neglected, so they rose up and said, we want to be independent from you, you're not taking care of us. And then India joined the fight, saying, we'll help you get independence from them. And that's what the Bangladeshi independence war. In 71 they got independence. We spent a lot of money for that, to help them get independence. Then the Green Revolution, who was MS Swaminathan was the architect of that. So at that point of time, the crop yield that we had wasn't enough to feed our own population. We were importing food. And then this guy was a geneticist is, I think is what it's called. So he genetically modified the crops, and implemented better agricultural procedures to improve the yield, as in the output of crops, by multiple fold. And that's when we became sufficient in food. That was a big step. Operation Flood by Verghese Kurin. How many of you have heard of Verghese Kurin? Verghese Kurin was the chairman of the dairy board, and he was one of the main guys behind Amul, the Amul brand as you see it. So he was a professional manager, and what he brought to the table was that till then, whatever progress you've seen would have been by machinery, by mass production. Bring in machines, create a lot of stuff with less manual power. What he brought in was, I will ensure mass production, but it will be done by the masses. So what he did was, he networked all the people who owned cows in Gujarat, and he said that, okay, you bring your milk and sell them and put it to one area, and we'll sell it for you, and we'll give you a fair price. So that's how that Gujarat Cooperative Federation was created, and that was replicated in some other states, and that led from India being a net importer of milk to a net exporter. Today, India is the largest producer of milk and dairy products in the world. It used to be US a few years ago. 98 is, I think, when we became the largest producer of milk. Nationalization of banks. So a lot of banks that you hear of now were actually private banks before, except I think SBI and RBI. Everything else was a private bank, and that Indira Gandhi said those banks should be owned by the government. I don't know why she wanted that. There was a lot of debate on that, but finally it did happen. Emergency. So here's an interesting thing. Indira Gandhi was accused of using funds, government funds, to sponsor her re-election. And this case went to court, and the court said that yes, you are guilty of that, and so you lose your seat. And then there was a mass uprising against her, and JP Narayan, not the JP Narayan of Andhra Pradesh, there was a JP Narayan from Jayaprakash Narayan in Bihar. He led an uprising against her, and there was a mass boycott, was a strike. And then she said that there is a socio-economic unrest, and this, so we should call an emergency, and she got present there. So this, any declaration of emergency has to be ratified by the president. She got the president to agree. And sir, am I going correctly? Is that how it happened?
Yes.
So that's what happened, and then she took all power. What, in an emergency, the president, the prime minister, assumes maximum power. Anything she says will be done as long as the president says yes. There is no voting by the legislature, no cabinets, nothing. Everything is bypassed. And she started putting all the opposition in jail, and she started muzzling the press. The press was not allowed to speak against her, and common rights of people were curtailed. They couldn't protest, they couldn't assemble. People did not like that, so they voted her out of power. But then she came back, And when she came back, there was I'd call it an uprising in Punjab, and the root cause of that uprising was because of the Green Revolution. Punjab started to create a lot of output in agriculture. So Punjab became rich, but the way our tax structure is structured, most of the money that a state earns goes back to the center, and then some of it comes back. And what Punjab said is that when we are earning so much money from our own sweat, why do you spend that money in the northeast? Why do you spend that money on people who are not working as hard as we are? So we want a separate country. So our unity as a country was not easily earned. It was very hard earned. So they started demanding that, and they didn't demand it peacefully like Gandhiji did. They demanded it in a violent way. They took up arms and started
to say correct. Apart from that, just one point. Sant Bindranwala.
Bindranwale.
That was another reason.
He was the leader of them, right? Yes. Yeah. Bindranwale was the Jinnah of his time, right? So.
And one more point regarding emergency. Emergency was the only time when India experienced dictatorship.
Yeah.
So it was the only time when newspapers were censored.
That was the only time.
And Indian.
How was the experience then?
Yes, that's what I went through that.
Did you like it?
No. I'll tell you, Indian Express was the only newspaper which boldly opposed censorship. All other so-called respectable national newspapers, including Hindu, Hindustan Times, Times of India, they all submitted to the government except Indian Express.
And didn't the government shut it down or something? No?
They tried to harass Ramnath Goenka. He was the owner.
Oh.
But that's why Indian Express is still respected because it stood up to emergency.
So, can you guys tell me why is it alarming if the press is muzzled, as in the press is not allowed free press? Why, if you don't allow the press to publish whatever it feels right, what's the problem there?
You get a biased news.
Or you get no news at all, right? So
like what's happening in China.
Yeah, exactly. What happened? You don't have Google there, right?
We don't know the truth.
We don't know the truth. They don't know what's happening outside the world. How do you get information about something that's not happening in front of you, right? What is happening in Delhi? You don't know anything about Delhi, man. Where do you get your information? From newspapers, right? From newspapers. Nowadays, you get the internet on Facebook and all that. So it's become. Then you didn't have all the things. You didn't even. The internet was invented in '89, right? The World Wide Web came in '91. So before that, none of these things were there. So if you muzzle the press, or if you control the press, that means you could do whatever you wanted as a government, and nobody would know. Only the people involved would know.
I remember that Russia or even president died. It takes almost 1 week or 10 days for them, the other people, other countries to know that.
Really?
Yes, they kept so much secrecy.
Oh.
Even China and all this communist.
Right.
They never reveal that.
Right. So if you don't get that information, you can't act. You cannot oppose, right? So that's.
Period of emergency. Suppose a person comes 5 minutes late to office, suspended.
Oh. So
So
efficiency would have gone up, right? No, don't you think?
No, that is one angle. But for the first time, the middle class felt the pinch. They now became.
Especially government servants, right?
No, apart from government service, even the individual persons not in government also, they realized the value of democracy. Because, for example, you are talking so freely here. Suppose this was a period of emergency, you would have been arrested.
How dare you speak against Indira Gandhi?
Yes. So it was an atmosphere of terror. It was a time when human rights were trampled.
Yep.
So that is why in 1977 there is such a massive anti-Congress wave.
That's what ousted her out of power. So we had the Bindranwale saying that I want my own country. And then when Indira Gandhi had started a police action against, and it was not the army, it was the police, I think. Was it army? Okay. Okay, army. So she sent the army against them. And so what they did was that they went and hid here. This is a very famous monument in Amritsar, Punjab. It's called the Golden Temple because it's colored gold, or I don't know whether it's covered with real gold. But it's a very popular, and it's the most holy place for Sikhs. just the way Badrinath or Kedarnath is for Hindus or Mecca is for Muslims. So that's their most holy place. And they went in. And the Indian army said that, come out, we don't want to go in and harm religious sentiments, but if you don't come out, we will go in. So they said, we won't come out. Why would I come out? I mean, the risk is on you. So Gandhi ordered was that go in and nab them. So they went in and they caught them, but in the process, civilians were also killed, and the structure was also damaged. So that led to a huge wave of backlash from Sikhs, and that was all controlled by the police at that point of time, right? KPS Gill,
Actually,
right?
see,
And
after Operation Blue Star only, the things got
escalated. Oh no, settled.
settled means it was receding the terror because that time whatever government taken a hard stand on that. It's a peak actually.
Okay.
That time peak and
So was
slowly it was coming down.
KPS Gill's work before that or after that?
No, it was even before and subsequent also.
Okay.
Actually, what happened was PV Narasimha Rao, the Prime Minister then, and terrorism was at peak in Punjab after Indira Gandhi also. So at that time they took a decision to give free hand to KPS Gill.
Oh, that was Narasimha Rao's
KPS,
time.
yes,
Okay.
Narasimha Rao's decision.
Okay.
So KPS Gill was given a free hand to crush the militancy in Punjab. So one reason why militancy was controlled in Punjab because the local population cooperated with the Indian Army and police.
You can't root out terrorism without local support.
Yes.
The army can testify to that in Jammu and Kashmir. So what happened as a result of that was that one of her bodyguards, as he was sick, he killed Indira. So you have one prime minister dead now, killed. That was the first instance of a PM being assassinated, right? And that was not the last. Okay, so this is not the Janata Party. I think you know this person, but it was a brief time, and I have this picture because I just wanted to show you the similarity between then and now. So then I'll just tell you a snippet I got from Wikipedia. The Janata Party had become intensely, they came to power because they resisted the emergency, and they were anti-corruption, right? They didn't like corruption. So they said that the Janata Party had become intensely unpopular because due to its internecine warfare. Internecine warfare means war between two people in which nobody wins, in a way which harms you and harms me also. And the fact that it offered no leadership on solving India's serious economic and social problems, that is very similar to what this guy over here, Arvind Kejriwal, is doing right now. He's anti-corruption and he wants to have a clean government, but there's a lot of bickering inside his own party, and he does not have a policy, a plan. How will we achieve social equality, or how will we improve our economy? He doesn't have a plan. He's just saying, I'm against corruption, but that being against corruption is not enough. Although it's necessary, it's good, but it's not enough. So that's why I just to bring that similarity between what's then and now. So Rajiv Gandhi was Indira Gandhi's son. By then Indira Gandhi had turned the party into a family party, right? Till before her time it wasn't like that. She herself was elected, right?
Yes.
But
one interesting thing was she was made Congress president when Nehru was PM.
oh really?
One state. Yes.
Oh okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, there was more of people pushing her up, but this was her pushing her son into the fray.
No,
So,
she never, Rajiv, he was not in politics, frankly speaking.
his mom pulled him in, right?
No.
No? After her death.
Actually, she was, the Sanjay Gandhi was there.
Sanjay.
He died and all that. He was never in the politics that time. Because after her death, when the Congress assessed they didn't have any leader and all that.
So you need somebody who has.
To be fair to Indira Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, unlike Rajiv Gandhi, was a political person. She was involved even in the freedom struggle. So there is no comparison between Rajiv Gandhi being groomed and Indira Gandhi being groomed. Indira Gandhi was a political person in her own right at that time. So she was pushed into that for whatever reason by Nehru as a Congress president.
Actually, Nehru groomed her also.
Yes.
When we can see
But the
that.
difference being Rajiv Gandhi was totally unexposed to politics. Whereas she was already involved.
That's
Sanjay
very
Gandhi
similar
was
to
exposed to politics.
like Rahul Gandhi right now, right?
Yes.
Initially he was not exposed. It's
Yes.
only a lot of trips and falls that right now he's in politics. He was a pilot. So the interesting thing that he did was he loosened the license Raj a little, less restrictions on foreign currency, travel, foreign investment and imports, which was a good thing. There were investments in telecom, space program took off. It was there also in Indira Gandhi's time when we reached space, right? Rakesh Sharma. But it took off in his time. Software and IT started because of these restrictions going down. LTT, Liberation for Tamil Tigers Alam. So the story there was, this is a party in Sri Lanka, actually an terrorist outfit in Sri Lanka. So the Sri Lanka has an interesting history. Sri Lanka has, part of its population is the native Sinhalese population, and part of it is Tamil, because Tamil Nadu people crossed the sea and went into Sri Lanka. Now, as we have seen, two groups of people with different cultures don't easily go together. The Sinhalese government said that everything has to be Sinhalese, no Tamil. And then the Tamil people said, no, how come you won't let us speak or do our official communications in Tamil? We'll oppose that. And that's where LTT got born. LTT was the Tamil terrorist outfit that tried to get its means by warfare. And I mean, in Rajiv Gandhi's time, we sent an Indian peacekeeping force into it and got our noses bloodied. We tried to stop the war, but we started getting involved in it, and we started fighting the Tamil LTTs. And as a result, what they did was that they bombed Rajiv Gandhi. They sent a lady to garland Rajiv Gandhi when he was campaigning. He wasn't the president then. After this, he was campaigning to become president, and then Prime Minister, sorry, and that lady blew him up. So that was the second case of assassination of a Prime Minister. Beaufort scandal. So Rajiv Gandhi used to be thought of as a clean guy, just like our Manmohan Singh right now. But then the Beaufort scandal happened. The Beaufort scandal. This gun is actually called a Beaufort. These guns are used to shoot, say, a few kilometers away on top of a hill if there's an enemy and you can't go up because you'll get killed. So those are used. And these were bought from an Italian businessman. And it was found out that the top government officials were taking kickbacks meaning bribes, from that Italian business. Say, you make your country buy these many buffers from me, I'll give you this much money. And that implication almost went till Rajiv's time, till Rajiv, but what do you call it? He wasn't implicated then. So that case is still open. Shah Banu case. So, sir, give me add some more if you will. I'll just tell you what I know about it. So the Shah Banu case was an interesting point in the turning of how equal should our civil laws be with respect to Hindu and Muslims. So Shah Banu was a 62-year-old woman, and she was given divorce by her husband. And the husband said that in according to law, I don't have to give you any alimony, monthly maintenance. I don't have to give you. I just have to give you one lump sum and then you're done. And then the court said that no, see, granting divorce may be a social thing, a religious thing, but the paying of alimony is not. It's a concern. I let you do that, then all of the Muslim women in our country will be at a disadvantage. What will they do after you divorce them? Because for them, divorces is like unilateral. I say talak, 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 and you're gone. The woman has no say in it. I mean, that's like unfair to the woman, right? So the court said that you have to give him alimony, and even the Supreme Court said that. So what the government did was they amended the constitution to say that no, you don't have to do it. So that sparked a debate saying that the Congress government is becoming pro-Muslim, not. So if Muslims are allowed to do that, that means Hindus are not allowed to do that. That means Hindu males are at a disadvantage to Muslim males, and you are discriminating on the basis of religion. We won't let that happen. It's one country, one rule. So this and a few, this was I think the trigger, but there were a few other policies by Congress at that time to woo Muslims. So that led to actually the Babri Masjid case, where fanatical Hindus went and tore down the Babri Masjid. That was in 91, I think. Saying that there was a Ram Mandir there, you broke it down and then you created a masjid, so I'll break down that masjid and create a Ram temple. That was the politics of L.K. Advani and BJP at that point of time. So they did that. Now we come to P.V. Narasimha Rao. So Narasimha Rao is from Andhra Pradesh. He was the Prime Minister from 91 to 96. And a very interesting thing happened here. So till then, India was all command and control, centrally planned, and get a license for whatever you want to do. And then we had a balance of payment crisis. By balance of payment means our import bill, getting stuff from outside, the bill for that exceeded the money we were getting for our exports. How did that happen? In 91, USSR fell. USSR fell, I think, 89 or 90. But then that escalated till 91. So the primary buyer of our produce, our biggest trade partner at that time was USSR. So now they stopped buying from us. So we earned less, right?